Welcome to the ITSP Magazine Podcast Network. You are about to listen to the Soulful CXO podcast with Dr. Rebecca Wynn. These conversations focus on the intersection of technology, business, and humanity, exploring how these three areas impact each other. Dr. Wynn interviews guests, including business leaders, entrepreneurs, and experts in various fields, to share insights and experiences on cybersecurity, risk management, and leadership. The podcast aims to provide a fresh perspective on how technology can be leveraged to create positive change in the world. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Soulful CXO. I'm your host, Dr. Rebecca Wynn, and we are pleased to have with us today Gary Hayslip. Gary has well over 25 years in information technology, security, leadership, risk management, and security risk governance, and supporting organizational goals and objectives. He's currently the CISO for SoftBank Investment Advisors. Previous roles include multiple CISO, CIO, Deputy Director of IT, and Privacy Officer roles for the U.S. Navy, both as active duty and as a federal government employee. He has co-authored books under his co-founded label, CISO Reference Guide. Additionally, there's numerous other writings such as CIO Review, CISO Online, LinkedIn, CyberWire, Forbes, Dark Reading, and numerous other places. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Gary, for people who don't know your background, because you're one of the few people I've met who actually started out the education and doing cybersecurity.
Yeah, I was in the U.S. Navy. I worked in advanced electronics. My job title was a fire controlman. I worked on advanced weapon systems. And the way the Navy does it is they train you to where you learn the whole system. You could be in school 6, 8, 10 months at a time, learning new systems, electronics, heat exchangers, radar systems. I got fascinated with computers. And more, I got a chance to work on things and break things. So I just kind of look at it as I already had that need to get involved with computers before I joined the military. And then the military opened up that spigot and just turned it loose and just let me run with it.
You've talked to this a couple of times, and you and I have talked separately about this. But in today's age, we have so many people who are virtual, and you don't always have everybody in the office. Keeping our staff engaged and constantly learning. You and I come from the school, the more you know you don't know, so teach me.
You'd be amazed at how many free resources are out there, even from vendors. I look at my security stack, vendors I'm a customer of, and every time I look at a renewal, or every time I look at bringing in a new technology, not only am I looking at the technology and the professional services to install it, I'm always asking about training. I'm always asking about recurring training, to make sure that my staff, get a chance to actually work on these assets, learn the technology and get educated. I'm always talking with the company where I'm at, hey, what funding do I have for conferences, or what funding do I have for online training? I'm mentoring and working with my staff, one-on-ones, group meetings when we're together, new technologies, reading and discussing books. We'll look at different things out there, but the thing with this is that you want to spend time with them for their professional growth. Because when you have somebody on your team, they're not going to stay in one place. They're going to want to grow. They're going to want to learn new things, and you should encourage that. I'm always reading, working on things and doing stuff. And so I not only do I try to set the example, but I also encourage them as well. We put it in our goals that we have for the year. There's always at least one professional goal, that each of us will have where we're working on a specific or degree, or we're working to finish certain, classes that we're working on. I let them choose, though I do try to guide them depending on where they want to go, within their career path.
No, because you mentioned certifications, and that's been a bugaboo of mine for a while now that so many of the certifications end up having tests out there. And I know you and I both are on ethics boards. How do you go about gauging people when you're interviewing people, putting out job descriptions out there, that you're really testing that the people really know the material and not that, let's face it, that they just went to some sort of cert farm out there? How do you recommend people weed out for that? Because that's being a real problem in the industry right now.
Yeah, and it's funny you brought that up. Several peers have ranted about this. When you're hiring, you look beyond just the cert piece. You look at the whole person. I look at career progression, what roles they've been in, what jobs they've taken. I look at involvement in the community. Are they involved with different professional organizations? Are they taking as a leadership within those organizations and volunteering? What are they doing at home? What projects are you working on? You'd be surprised how many times, I find someone, okay, they may not have, the whole list of certs. They may only have a couple, but, they go ahead and they go to meetups and they go to DEF CON and they're volunteering and, at capture the flag events. And they got like 3 or 4 different projects that they're doing at home. And that's what I look for, is that passion. Sometimes I don't need the cert. So instead, what I need is the passion. And the reason is because we know cybersecurity as a career, you're in it for the long haul. It's a stressful job. It's a lot of hard work. You're continuously dealing with threats and with issues, not just within the security stack, but the IT stack and then the organization itself, the various technologies and the things that business is doing today. And cyber is so intertwined in business operations today. You've got to have people that love technology, find cybersecurity fascinating, enjoy the field, and willing to put up with how rough the job is. It does not get easier the more senior you get. It does get harder and more stressful. The reason why many of us have talked about self-care and everything, about yourself and for your teams. Certs to me are important because I look for the basics, but I also look beyond that. They may not have this, but they're doing other things and they interview well. And I really think that they're going to be a good fit for the team. Try to look at the whole person, when you interview them.
Those are excellent points. I tell people you need to keep in mind when you have a performance-based exam versus a common-based knowledge exam, 2 different types of exam.
Yep.
And one thing I think is the thinking. If you don't have people who can write well, who can't communicate well, forget about it and anything else, unless they maybe want to be in a special area of our field. That really brings into tying into and how that builds into our cybersecurity resiliency as building teams. And I mean, you've written quite a bit about in your books, as well as in articles, about 5 core steps on building a cybersecurity resiliency team. That's really important as we go into, the next 3, 6, 9 months, and people looking at, do we really have a good cybersecurity resiliency going on? Do we really have a good roadmap? Can you walk us through that?
Are we talking about like roadmap for building a program or what I do for building a team?
Both. When you build a cybersecurity team or strategy, if you're not thinking about your team, your strategy is going to fail.
Honestly, it comes from experience. For me, I do a continuous assessment. Even when I do my first, kind of assessment, whether I'm using CIS or whether I'm using, NIST CSF, I'm looking for a baseline. Or I, like to joke about sometimes when I'm talking with boards, I'm just like, how deep is the rabbit hole? I'm just trying to baseline where we're at, what we're doing well and not well. Then from that list, the list of issues, I actually go into the other departments. I talk with my peers and I have them help me prioritize, kind of rack and stack it. And I try to align it to the business. With that list, I then take a look at my teams. I look at what technologies I have in the stack, what current projects I have. I look at the people that I've basically got in my team, what skill sets they bring, not just tech skill sets. I'm also looking at soft skills too. Who can communicate well and who has issues with that? Who works really well together in a team atmosphere and who kind of likes to work on their own. Then you weigh these different things together and then looking at your technologies and then looking at now this list of prioritized issues. Some of these may be projects or new technologies for the next 18 to 24 months, depending on budget and the business. Some may require, hey, we're going to replace our firewalls. We're looking for a larger secure platform. And this new one that we're looking at, I'm going to need someone with experience with that. And currently, I don't have anybody. We're an on-prem organization. Now we're looking to go into the cloud. The stack's going to shift. Now all of a sudden, you're going to be very focused on IAM and you're going to be very focused on data security. And my staff may be focused on the traditional endpoint security. And all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to need some people that understand 2FA, that understand how we're going to go ahead and handle 300 plus SaaS apps. And I'm going to have to go ahead and assign business owners to them or audit them. The security issues and risks are still there, but your stacks is going to change. The technologies you use may shift because you're looking at things differently now as you go more on the digital side, you go more cloud. That's going to cause you to have to change your team through training, ready, for the change that's coming, or, you do a little bit of each. I'm going to go ahead and train people and bring on 1 or 2 senior people that'll go ahead and lead, these change projects that we have coming up, and then I'll build a team around them. It's a matter of, doing the continuous assessment, partnering with the departments around you to kind of help level set you and keep you aligned to the business. And then they're aware of what you're doing so that as you start, the third piece, as you start moving towards your projects that go ahead and deal with your risk, you don't interfere with the business. Internally, you start looking at who you have hired, what you're going to need, who you're going to go ahead and train, start looking at sets. The last piece from a technology standpoint is, what are you going to decommission? What are you going to get rid of? Is there a way possibly over the strategic plan you're putting together, can we consolidate? Can we remove 5 different platforms and consolidate down to 1 or 2 that now actually provide more services? Some interesting companies out there now that at one time used to only offer 1 or 2 products, and now they offer 7 or 8, and they're building out these platforms. That's when you start having this discussion of, okay, I've got my prioritized list. I've been told to go forward. I've looked at my team. I've already kind of, laid out what I'm going to need from a skills perspective. The departments around me know what we're working on. Leadership knows what we're working on. I've got budget. Now, how do we integrate? How do we get better? And then the last piece is just understanding this is going to take time. You're going to need to go ahead and do this in increments. I usually do it in 12-month increments, and I'm constantly reassessing. It makes it easier to report where you're at within projects, how you're doing with resources you have, how you're doing with the FTEs you currently have, and what you're going to need, for the next 12 months as specific projects come along. All intertwined. You don't want to do it behind closed doors. Keep the departments involved, be visible so people know what you're working on. And the reason is everything that you do is going to impact the business. It's unfortunately we're change magnets. CISOs and security teams impact the business. You don't want it to be negative. You want them to understand the value of what you're bringing. And there may be a little bit of pain as you adjust to something new. The culture may not like new things, but if you've done your job and they see things visible and they know your team members and they know what you're working on and you've done brown bag sessions and they can see where you're going, they're willing to give you a benefit of doubt. They're willing to trust you that, hey, this may be painful, but yeah, we're going to do 2FA. This may be painful, but yeah, this new email platform actually does provide us better security. Those kind of steps, you got to get everybody involved, document, and you got to go ahead and as you're moving forward, you're continually assessing and you're always reviewing and managing your team to make sure not only do they have the technical resources, but they also have the skill sets and everything that they need to be successful.
Today, right now, the CISO in our structure is in flux. Cloud infrastructure teams who think they should be able to control everything. You have standard infrastructure who think they should control everything. You end up having engineering who thinks they should control. You have product development who thinks they control. And a lot of times when we talk about things that used to be underneath us, they're not underneath us. Then you're talking about being a business enabler and you're like, I just got hit out of the blue. Don't even know what you guys are doing because we approved a budget and you did something opposite. How do you navigate that successfully? That's the real challenge in today's CISOs.
You're right. The job you and I knew 10, 15 years ago is not it today. It's changed a lot. It's actually a good thing, but the change is coming extremely fast. A lot of us are still trying to figure out how to use this role because when you look at it, cybersecurity is a domain of different types of knowledge. And when you get an executive coming in who has 10 or 15 years of experience within there, they just don't have, experience and training and education in one area. They have a broad breadth of knowledge. And a lot of times organizations aren't really sure how to use an executive with those types of skill sets. And sometimes they tend to use him or her for 3 or 4 different things, and it tends to scatter CISOs as they try to figure out and get their place within the organization as to, okay, this is what I'm actually supposed to be here for. And instead they're like, okay, I'm here for this and also this and also this, and it just kind of grows. To go ahead and kind of control a lot of that, I think that, being involved with the other departments, having them in, myself, the way I've done it in the past is I've gone ahead and I've had peers involved with everything I'm working on. I'm briefing them. I do my monthly security committee briefing where I'll have people from other departments sitting in so they're aware of what we're dealing with, what threats we're blocking, and what projects we're working on. Getting them involved even in the initial phase when I'm doing assessments and I'm having them go through and not just look at it from a security lens, but a business lens so that I can prioritize what issues I need to work on. They've got buy-in, so they kind of own a little bit of the security program because they're involved with my team. Another thing as a CISO, there are some things that may be better in other departments. When I was at Webroot, I constantly worked back and forth with the VP of Dev, and then we had about 8 development teams. And I finally decided, okay, I can't have a security AppSec team periodically hotshot the dev team. The security team actually part of dev, and the leader reports to me. It's easier to do it that way. Now I've got insight. I know what they're working on, but that team is embedded, works with them, does stand-up sprints, scrum calls. Periodically, I may every once in a while sit in just so I see what they're doing, but I don't need to control that team. That team can run. The leader of that team can do one-on-ones, chat, see where they're at, what they need, and periodically sync up with the rest of the security teams to do like larger security training. But you got to be okay with satellite teams, be okay to go ahead and embed security. My thing is I'm not worried about managing and controlling the people. I'm worried about managing the risk across the whole business. And if that's what I need to do, that's fine. I'm more than happy to go ahead and partner with dev or partner with production or whoever I need to. And if we want to bake security in, and when we take a look, it's a lot easier to have the team with them than it is with me. From a skill set perspective, I can grab a couple of the dev people that want to learn security, that are actually very knowledgeable, and add 1 or 2 FTEs, spin that up. We can get a quick security team running fast, and I can start managing those risks and let that run. You don't need to control it all. There are specific things in operations and stuff like that you're going to need to manage. It just basically fall within your area. But there's going to be things where you got to be comfortable with, where other departments will have to manage, and you just partner with them.
That's great. Gary, really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Soulful CXO podcast with Dr. Rebecca Wynn, part of the ITSP Magazine podcast network. If you learned something new and this conversation made you think, then add this show to your favorite podcast player. Subscribe to the ITSP Magazine YouTube channel and share the ITSP Magazine podcast network with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to connect your brand to our conversations and our audience, visit itspmagazine.com to learn how to sponsor one or more of our shows. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey.